Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Bittersweet Unconfidence podcast. Before I start this episode, there's a short fun fact that I want to share with you. And this is actually something a friend of mine sent me a couple of days ago. It's a statistic about podcasters. And this statistic shows that 90% of people who start a podcast don't make it past episode 3. And of the 10% that is left, 90% don't make it past episode 20. So, after today's episode, I might be joining the 1% league, which is something I never thought about before. And when I started this podcast, I didn't see what episode 20 would be or where I would be when I do episode 20. So I just want to share that this journey has been nothing but amazing. And if you're listening to this episode for the first time, please make sure to check out the other episodes either on YouTube or on Spotify, whatever you like. And if you're new, just hit the subscribe button and the bell so you can see when a new episode drops every Wednesday. So let's get right into today's topic. Today's topic is something that we all are confronted with at least once in our lifetime, or at least once a week, I would say. It is having differences with other people, because we all see the world through a different set of eyes. I see the world differently than you do, and you see it differently than your friends do, because we all have a different kind of subjective perception of life. And through this, life becomes more interesting and more amazing, because we start to learn more from other people's perspectives and opinions. But we often find ourselves getting triggered by people's opinion when it doesn't match ours. And in this episode, I want to share with you 5 points that helped me understand how to talk to somebody who has a different opinion without being triggered and actually benefit out of the conversation way more than just being stubborn. So before we start, as usual, I'm Joe, and I hope you're not comfortable. But if you are, then let's get uncomfortable together. Hi. So as I said in the intro, actually I thought about this topic 2 days ago because I had a conversation with a friend that went, I think, over 2 hours of him not being able to understand my opinion and my perspective of a certain situation. The situation was that I left a job that was very lucrative, where I had a lot of chances of becoming wealthy and becoming more successful and climbing up the ladder. For him, this whole topic didn't make sense because for him, he would have followed the wealth and the success. What I tried to tell him was that my mental health and my emotional state did not allow me to continue, and I took the decision because I wanted to find my true happiness and my inner self and my inner peace. And it didn't make sense to him, and I understand. But while we were having the conversation, I realized that he apologized a lot because he's not understanding my point. And he also often said, I really don't understand you. I really don't understand how you can do something like that, because for me, it's something I can never imagine myself doing. And it got me thinking on the way home after the conversation. I think it ended at like 2 a.m. And I was on the way home and I was reflecting about it. And I realized you don't have to understand me and I don't have to understand you unless we decide to both learn from our conversation. And I realize that I go into conversations with people with the willingness to learn something, with the willingness to have a good interaction, to share something and get something in return. I don't go into a conversation just having the aim of giving the other person my opinion. In fact, their opinion is more important to me than mine because I know mine. But I'm very interested to see how they see certain topics. So as we were talking about this, I was giving him my side of the story. But I realized that every time I told him my side, he flipped it onto his side and said that he still doesn't understand. So I'm going to share with you the 5 points that made it possible for me to not only understand what other people mean, but actually learn to grow through having differences in opinions. So point number 1 is I don't take it personal. It's very important that when a person has a different opinion than you do, Even if they tell you that your opinion is bad or not good enough or whatever, don't take it personal, because they're not criticizing you. They are criticizing the opinion that you have on a certain topic, right? If they do criticize you as a person, then that's a person who cannot intellectually talk to you or have a normal discussion with you without having the aim of hurting you. But if you know that you shouldn't take those things personal, then you won't be hurt, you won't be triggered, and you will be able to discuss the matter with more rationale, with more empathy and less anxiety or fear or trying to conform just to fit in immediately so you don't have to have the conversation. I don't take your criticism personally. I take it as something constructive where I can reflect and learn something myself. But just because we have a difference of opinion, I am not insulted by you having a different one. And this is very, very important. Don't take it personal when somebody doesn't agree with you, because it's normal. Because sometimes you don't agree with them either. But that doesn't mean that they're stupid, right? They just have a different perception because they have a different life experience than you. They have different knowledge than you. And through that, we can learn together. Point number 2, and this is also unbelievably important, it's I listen attentively, right? I know that their opinion is not the one I have. It's completely different than the one I have. And this gives me even more reason to actually listen with my entire being. Because I know that a lot of people in discussions and in arguments, instead of listening to what the other person is saying, they start thinking about the next counter argument that they will say, right? So as the person is telling me their perspective, I'm not listening. I'm thinking about my perspective and how I want to share my point right now. So you take the first 2-3 words of what the person is saying and you start thinking about your argument or what you're going to say. Through that, you might miss a lot of important things that the person is saying, right? Because you cannot listen and think at the same time. Once you listen, you have to actually free yourself entirely and actually listen and try to understand as much as you can. By not listening, you are not giving the other person justice. You are not giving them the room to share their opinion for real, and you stay stubborn. But by actually listening, you might see that your opinions are not that far apart, right? But if you keep thinking about your next sentence and they keep thinking about their next sentence, you might both be talking to each other, but not actually to each other, but away from each other, right? Because you do have a similar perception of the situation, but you don't get to understand that you do because you're not listening. Start listening. And I know that this is one of the most important issues and most difficult situations in relationships, right? Why did you break up? Well, he doesn't listen to me or she doesn't listen to me. That's one of the main reasons of why people break up, because they don't feel heard. They don't feel like you listen to them. And it's true. We don't listen because we're so preoccupied with our thoughts and our mind and trying to always win an argument that we don't give the other person time to actually tell us what they feel or what they think. So when you have a conversation with someone, have a conversation with this person. Don't have monologues. Actually listen to them and try to give them the space and time to tell you whatever they want to tell you, and make sure that you listen as good as you can, because only then can you actually tell them what you think. Point number 3, I am open to learning. So whenever I have a discussion with someone from a different opinion or from a different standpoint, I make it my job to try to understand and learn why is it that they are this way or that they see this issue this way, right? I try to actually listen how their life experience has made their opinion this way. And there is a point as well that I'm going to talk about is asking questions, right? By asking questions, you start to learn more, because then you can drive the conversation in a way where you can help the other person as well understand and learn why they think the way they do about a certain thing, right? So if I'm not open to learning, if I'm stubborn, and I know that in this conversation I want you to adapt my perception, then it's probably not going to work. It's not a conversation that is going to be helpful for either of you, because you're stubborn. You don't want to learn new things from that person because you feel like this person is wrong, right? I don't try to prove another person wrong. And this is point number 4. I don't have the intention of proving you wrong. A lot of people go into a discussion with the intention of showing you the right way. But who told you that this is the right way? Who told you that your way is the only way, or your way of thinking is the correct one? Right and wrong is something that we subjectively decide. We decide what's right and what's wrong. Even if the law says that something is wrong, some people might say, for me, it's right. I feel like this is okay. We are prejudged or pre-shaped to have the certain right or wrongs of society. This is something we grow up with, right? We grow up knowing lying, killing, stealing is bad. And we understand why, because it means it's hurting somebody else. We learn that helping people is a good thing. We learn that laughing is good, or whatever. So we try to do more right things according to society. So you choose what is your right and what is your wrong. But why do you even need to label it as right or wrong? This is the question I ask myself. It's something either I'm happy with or unhappy with. And if I'm unhappy with it, I try to understand why, so maybe I can flip it into my advantage. But if it's something that makes me happy, then it feels right. And when it feels right, I don't need to question why it does feel right. I just know that it feels good. Okay? So this is all about right or wrong. But in a conversation with someone where you have the intention of proving that you're right and they are wrong, you're just gonna be defending or attacking, but you're never gonna be actually talking. You're either gonna defend your standpoint or you're gonna attack theirs. And in both ways, you're not helping the person constructively at all. They will not learn anything from your conversation. You will not learn anything from your conversation, because at the end of it, you're both gonna be fighting about who's right and who's wrong. But again, you could both be right and you could both be wrong. If you listen and if you open up your mind and you actually try to learn, then maybe both of you will benefit from the conversation way more. So don't have the intention of proving someone wrong or proving yourself right. Have the intention of having a good talk and learning something out of it. There's this quote by Plato that is everywhere, I think, and everybody knows it. I know that I know nothing. And at the same time, we do know everything, right? That we know, but we know at the same time nothing. And if you actually internalize this as one of your core values, you will never be a smartass trying to teach people that you are right. Instead, you start automatically applying the 4 rules that I talked about so far. You don't take it personal because you know that you know nothing, right? You listen because you want to learn, because you know that you know nothing. And at the same time, you try to learn as much as you can because you know that you don't know anything. So you want to know more. So this one quote actually helped me so much. I know that I know nothing. Just gave me the freedom to ask more, to be more attentive, to take more care of my conversations with people. And as I said, point 5, this is about asking questions. I love asking questions. When I was having this argument or discussion with this friend a couple of days ago, I kept asking him about why he saw it the way he did, because he said, I really cannot understand how you threw away the chance of becoming successful and rich and whatever to do what you're doing, right? And I said to him, okay, like, why don't you understand? And he said, because I cannot see myself doing that. So that's number 1. It had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with him. He could not see himself doing that, and that's fine. There are different kinds of people with different kinds of motivations and goals and aspirations. For me, my mental health and my well-being is more important than the financials, because I know that throughout my ambition and my passion and my love towards life, I will find a way to take care of my financial situation just as much. But if I'm not doing well, even if you give me all the money in the world, I will still not be doing well. And the quote of I'd rather cry in a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, I'm trying to get myself away from being broken altogether, either in a Ferrari or on a bicycle. I don't care. I want to be a happy human being. I want to have a happy and fulfilling life. And for me, that's time with my loved ones, with my family, with my friends, with myself, working on the things that I want to do, and not doing things just to obtain a goal of money. Because when you do something you love with your passion and your drive and your actual core values, money will follow. And I have immense hope, and I'm convinced that that's true, because you will find ways of how to monetize what you love. So back to point number 5, I ask questions. You can help the person reflect also way more about their perspective by asking them good questions. So I asked him why he couldn't understand, and then I asked him what happiness is for him. And for that question, he took a minute, and he replied, happiness is knowing that I am financially free. That's his definition of happiness. I know that mine is completely different, and I know that every single person on this planet has their own true definition of happiness that they sometimes share and sometimes they don't. So if you keep asking, you might get to the bottom of it. But just help the person as well understand why they have their opinion, because a lot of the times, as I said in the previous episode, we have predetermined values, right? There are some values that were given to us throughout our childhood, through our parents, through our friends, through our family, and through society and social media. Those are not our values. So when you ask a person questions about why their opinion is completely opposite to yours, or why they have a certain opinion, then you realize that a lot of the times they will realize as well that their values were passed on to them and weren't actually made by them. Because if they are confident in one opinion they have, but they cannot actually back it up all the way, that means it's not something intrinsic. That means it's something extrinsic that happened in their life that made them have this opinion about this certain topic. So this friend of mine, his parents were hard workers, are hard workers. They work a lot, and all to attain as much money as possible. So for him, money and financial freedom equals happiness, because my parents have been trying to do that their whole entire life, right? So try to ask yourself why you have your opinion, and try to ask the other person why they have theirs, but not in a judgmental kind of way. Because who are we to judge each other? I cannot judge you because you have a certain opinion. That's wrong of me to do. Instead, I respect you, and I understand that you do have a different opinion, and that's why I ask you questions, merely out of curiosity, because I want to learn from you, because I want to understand you better, and I want you to understand you better. So ask more questions. Let's summarize the 5 points again. So point number 1, I don't take it personal when people have a different opinion. Point number 2, I listen attentively while having a conversation with them, because I might actually see that they have a similar opinion to mine. Point number 3, I am open to learning. Being open to learning makes a conversation way easier, because you actually listen in order for you to learn and mature and grow. And where is the best place to learn better than other people's experiences? Because that's practical learning and not factual learning, right? It's not something you just learn from a book. It's something you learn from somebody's life experience. So you learn what not to do and what to do. Point number 4, I don't have the intention of proving other people wrong. Who am I to prove you wrong? That's my opinion and your opinion, and they're both our opinions, and both for us may be the right ones. But that doesn't mean I need to prove that you're wrong and that I'm right, because that would make me stubborn. That would make the conversation derail immediately, because I'm not going to listen to you, and everything you say, I'm going to answer you with a no, because blah, 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 blah. Instead, listen and talk about what they were talking about instead of talking about what you want to talk about. Point number 5, ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can to understand it better. And as I said before, to help the other person understand it better as well. So you're doing yourself and the other person a service by asking more questions. I hope you like this episode as usual. As I said before the episode started, if you like this kind of content, just subscribe, like, comment, and do all those other things as well. If you have any feedback or anything you want to share with me, or an opinion, a different opinion than mine, please hit me up on Instagram or wherever you will find me. Just let's have a chat. Let's try to learn from each other, grow and mature together. Life is all about the journey, right? And I love the journey, and thankful for every one of you for listening. Thank you all. See you all again next week. Bye bye.